The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the dumb cops that actually does what the bad guy says and gets killed for it, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, so we're back again with Frankenstein Reborn.
Reborn?
Yeah.
No, this was from 2005. This is not from Full Moon. However, this is our first The Asylum production, right?
Yeah, and I had no idea when I was like, Asylum's kind of like the new Full Moon in a lot of ways, so it
right?
feels
It's
fitting.
Very much so. I mean, it's interesting, though, because this is from 2005, as I just mentioned. This is kind of when they cared, right? Mm-hmm. This was before they were like, oh, it's easier to just pump out bullshit and get some vaguely rich people or famous people in on this and, send it to Syfy Channel and make a bunch of money that way.
Yeah, this definitely predates all the Sharknado stuff and like the Transmorphers and all that when they just started like doing blatant knockoffs of blockbusters and stuff. Like this is an actual unique property that they have created, a unique story.
Yeah, you can actually tell they cared versus literally anything else they've done after that. Here's something wild to me, okay? Because I was looking through the Asylum's filmography, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think this is mentioned anywhere on that page.
Interesting.
But you know what is mentioned?
What's that?
A movie called Foreplay, okay? And I'm like, is this a knockoff of that, the guy from Walking Dead, the one, not Four Christmases, what the hell is that called?
Oh, Love Actually?
Love Actually. Yeah, the poster looked like a ripoff of Love Actually, but no, it is not. This is a movie that the Asylum created called Foreplay, starring Colin Firth, okay? Stephen Fry. Yeah, but like actual well-known good actors are in the Asylum movie.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely not familiar with that one, but that's surprising.
Yeah, so I did my due diligence this one time. And like looked into that, and I'm like, okay. But the main actor who will play Victor Franks is basically just the Asylum mainstay. He's done a lot of their stuff, a few television things. You know who's actually not exactly well known, but far more prolific than I thought?
Who's that?
It's the guy who plays the creature / Bryce. His name is Joel Ezra Hebner. I believe he's credited just as Joel Hebner in this.
Okay.
Also done a ton of TV shows. But of course, was for a while there the Asylum alumni as well. But he kind of started breaking off. When was that about? We'll say 2013, 2014, right? He's in Ant-Man.
Okay.
All right, he's a Pimtech security guard. So he's not very famous. He was also in a Kenny Chesney video, which, okay, sure, why not? And he's also been in a lot of recent horror movies, such as Grim Cuddy and The Collector.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, he's not famous, but he's more famous than everybody else.
Yeah, there's the only... Like, I went through IMDb, and the only actor on that page that I knew or, like, recognized the name at all was Dana DeArmond, who I think is mostly a porn star, but shows up in, like, racy non-porn stuff occasionally, or, like...
Oh, like the old Skinamax?
Yeah, or like those, when it's like a comedy and they need a porn star in the, then they'll like, just get a porn star. I think she's done a couple things like that, but that's
Right.
And she's a super minor character in it. I didn't even recognize her when I was watching it, but I just saw the name and I was like, I know that name from somewhere.
Fair enough. All right, so let's get started on this. We get Frankenstein Reborn with title card right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, it's like a real edgy kind of font. Like it's like, it looks
Definitely
like that, like
2005.
Yeah, it almost looks like that, like you wouldn't steal a DVD promo thing. It's like, kind of shaky typewriter-y font, and the music is. There's a lot of like nu metal adjacent kind of music in this. It's more like it sounds like The Prodigy or something. It's like kind of electronic,
electronica.
But like, yeah, it's definitely 2005 in so many ways.
Lovingly so, I guess. I don't know if that's true or not. But so we also get immediately. There's a lady. I thought it was like, did they get Gina Gershon in this movie? But no, the actress is Sarah. Leaving.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyway, she's playing the character of Jessica Halverson, which we really won't find out till way later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she's smoking a cigarette. She's trying to call somebody who we'll learn is Victor. And she keeps calling him, and like she leaves her voicemail on the answering machine. Then somebody calls her back, and she's like, "Hey, why'd you just ignore me?" And she gets nothing. So she's getting a little bit of the Scream treatment here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she gets out of the car, and like we just see her kind of exploring this sort of sketchy
creepy murder hallway.
Yeah. It's like some abandoned warehouse kind of area, and she thinks Victor's already there. She's kind of walking around calling for him, and then finds a room that is splattered with blood, and then finds a heart in a jar.
Well, also, if you noticed, on the table there is a decapitated head.
Okay.
And that's when she screams. And I think I saw something like they focused on a shadow as she goes into the room behind her, and I was like, is that a pair of ice skates? Are those legs hanging up? And I don't know. It might have been an axe, but I don't fucking know. That no axe gets used.
Yeah, it's just, because it's a warehouse, there's just like shit everywhere. It's messy and stuff. So, yeah, there's probably all kinds of weird stuff going on in there.
Yeah, but what happens once that heart starts beating, Anthony?
She gets attacked from behind by a monstrous figure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then she gets thrown onto a table, chain wrapped around her neck, and then, well, did we give the warnings now?
Probably.
Let's
smart.
go for it.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's gore. There's kind of sexual assault. There's some like.
There's a couple sexual assaults, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some like inappropriate sexual behavior from several characters. Yeah, it's kind of like similar to like Elizabeth Harvest, where it's like, but there are some that are like very much more explicit, including like drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
This is not a movie where we're supposed to like Victor at all.
No. There's also going to be some ableism coming up later, in relation to the character of Bryce.
Oh yes, yeah. And like he's not a well-written character. Like no. Even like Bryce is like paralyzed and is also kind of using a lot of ableist language because the actor and the writer have no idea what's they're just playing the story.
Right, exactly. And obviously they've probably never met someone who is paralyzed because I think most people who've undergone such trauma and survived are usually like, I mean, yeah, sure, it might be better, but I'm okay the way I am right now.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of those situations. Yeah. What do I know? I've never been through anything like that.
Right. But yeah, I think that's mostly it.
Yeah, other than gore.
Yeah. So, which is, of course, why you mentioned it now, because the next thing that happens is Jessica just gets ripped in half.
Well, yeah, it looks like he's going for some sexual assault, because he grabs her by the legs.
Yep.
Which she's just wearing a skirt. And it's like, oh no. Already? And then, but as you said, just rips off her lower torso. So, just some innocent murder.
Yeah, so, and then we just, like, cut to credits from that. Like, we just see her upper half hanging there from the chain. And then, cut to credits, which the credits... this is where we get the really edgy electronic music. And we get, like, purple kind of smudgy photos throughout.
Yeah. I was like, is this CGI? But it's like, no, this is kind of too early for that. That's still kind of pricey for this level of movie.
Yeah. Especially for the Asylum.
Photos. Yeah. It's just photos they've touched up. That's all.
And it's funny because we go from the credits where it's, says that this is an Asylum production to an asylum where Victor is being held.
They understood the assignment, right?
Yeah.
Just this once.
So basically what's going on is like Victor is accused of a murder or several murders, and he's awaiting trial, and like this asylum or mental health facility is evaluating his mental stability to see if he can stand trial. We've got the therapist is named Emily.
Yeah, Dr. Emily Hertz. They only call her Emily. I don't think they call her Dr. Hertz.
Okay. And she's wanting to do a session with him where he's not drugged up with Thorazine, which they've mostly been using.
They want him a little bit more cognizant than he's been.
And so right away he starts hallucinating and thinks that she is Elizabeth. So he's not in good shape. And he kind of has like a violent outburst, and like guards kind of have to like hold him down.
Elizabeth, it's me, Elizabeth.
Yeah. And so then we just cut to Emily talking to her boss,
Dr. Walton.
Robert Walton. Yeah.
Okay. We got a throwback. I like it.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's like the people making this care, like they've paid attention to the Frankenstein details. Like Robert Walton is, that's a book cut. That's not something you get from most movies. So like having that reference is, somebody here is paying attention. So that was nice.
Right. Yeah, if somebody gave a shit on this one.
Yeah.
Versus Sharknado, why not?
Right. So Emily's talking to him, and she's like, I need to quit. I can't keep working with Victor. He's dangerous. I'm not getting anywhere.
He threatens me.
Yeah. And Walton's like, but the state needs the eval done by tomorrow, and you're like the third person who's tried to work with him. Everybody keeps quitting.
Right, and she's like, yeah, why don't you do it, though? You're the best we got. Why don't you do it, boss?
Yeah.
Okay, but the fact that he kind of is like, fine, whatever at the end, that pisses me off later on in the movie. We're going to talk about that.
I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, and so like they kind of discuss, where they are with his case currently. They say that he is a dangerous sociopath, almost certainly a sexual deviant.
Which, boo.
Yeah.
Boo.
And they say he's probably capable of murder, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he is a murderer.
Right. He has the options if he wanted to.
Yeah. So then we cut to Walton sitting down in front of Victor. And, it's perfect because this is Victor and Walton talking. That's the whole basis for the Frankenstein novel. And we get it here, obviously under different circumstances, but still it's a nice nod.
And I like that they've kind of modernized it for the time in that he brings in a recorder, not just, scribing it himself. He's like, I want to get all of the details.
Yeah.
And my handwriting is kind of awful. Which, second, 100%. Yeah.
So Walton gives Victor a cigarette, and then they kind of have a conversation about, like, it's weird. A lot of doctors smoke, and it seems like they shouldn't because they know the risk.
Not only that, but Victor's like, well, he can tell that Walton smokes because his years in the chemical labs have made his olfactory nerves very sensitive, which I'm calling shenanigans. I feel like if you've been in a chemical lab for a long time, that's done the exact opposite. You could probably smell nothing.
I thought the same thing. Those are like, your nerves get kind of just like worn away from trauma, basically.
Right, yeah. So if any chemical scientists can tell us, please let us know. We want to know the truth of this matter.
So Victor, says, you don't need to worry about cigarettes. Your fate as far as health, cancer, all that, it's written into your DNA at birth. There's nothing you can do about it.
We love a good biological determinism, don't we?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
By the way, why does Walton look like Matt Damon? Like a really tall Matt Damon.
Yeah, he kind of does. I hadn't clocked that, but yeah, he definitely has that vibe.
Right, and he has no right to be named Thomas Downey while looking like Matt Damon. He's like the Matt Damon and Robert Downey we have at home,
Yeah. And so they start talking. Victor says he originally worked in Africa on bio-nanotech that was supposed to repair neurologic disorders.
Right. He worked for a company called Blackthorn.
Mm-hmm. Which is just like a super edgy kind of name. Like,
yeah.
But, you know, I think Walton says, so did you make any progress with it? And he was like, yeah, we solved it. But, you know...
We kind of had to leave after the government caught on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of had to flee South Africa. They thought that would be a safe place to do these tests, but even...
And I love the fact that Walton was like, well, how could you do them in America? And Victor was just like, bro, this is America, come on.
Right.
You know the kind of shitty shit you all are doing.
Yeah. And so then we cut to him working. We get a flashback. A lot of this movie, you know, as the story, the framing story kind of thing, we're going to be flashing back and forth a lot. We're working with Bryce, as you mentioned, who is paralyzed. And Victor's like, let me tell you the risks of this procedure. You know, this is all brand new. It's all experimental. Things could go really bad. You could get worse. You could die. You know, Bryce is like, I don't care. You know, I'm tired of living this way. You know, I just want a better life for myself.
Well, and to be fair, don't they say you've got about 3 months anyway, regardless of what we do? Or does that come later?
I don't remember that, but yeah, that would. I feel like they should have focused on that because that would have made it a little less.
Maybe I imagined it. Who knows? We'll find out later.
Yeah, I mean that would have made like the ableism a little less glaring if like Bryce is like, you know, I'm in this situation, but I you know it's temporary, so I would rather it be temporary in a healthy way than end in death.
Right. Exactly.
But Bryce does, you know, he's kind of still full of life. Like, we meet Elizabeth, Victor's assistant, and he, like, hits on her and is like, you know...
Right, he's like, hey, in a couple months I'll be fully functional again.
Yeah.
Or by the time this is over.
Yeah, so he's all, like, he's making plans for when he's going to be mobile again. And so then they inject him, and he, like, goes into kind of, like, sort of seizures. I think it's, like, muscle spasms.
Because I guess they explain it by the nanotech is interacting with the spinal fluid, and somehow that's causing all the issues.
Yeah, I think so. And then we just cut back to the present, where Victor's saying, you know, the nanotech helped. Bryce gained some mobility, but really that was just a dry run for the real goal, which was to resurrect the dead.
Right, of course, because that's always the goal, right?
Yeah, that's... We're talking about Frankenstein here. That's always the goal.
Okay. Yeah, and then, of course, Frank's, he's not called Frankenstein, it's just Frank's, mentions that Bryce's lower body was now functional after 3 months. Maybe that's where I've got it. I don't know. I feel like later they do say that. But he didn't have, full control over it at this time?
Yeah, I think so. We also get this little brief scene that Victor starts testing on himself, too. Mm-hmm. And, like, I understand... plot-wise why they did that, like there's a reason, but I don't know what Victor like is accomplishing by injecting himself with this if he's already got full mobility.
So here's my thoughts on this, okay? I feel like the writers wrote themselves into a corner, and then they were like, how the fuck do we get out of this? Oh, of course, he did test on himself, and that's going to affect something later, because we'll never see the something later. They only mention it. We don't see it.
Yeah, because I think like the next scene is we see Bryce. He's in the bathroom, and he picks up a razor blade.
Well, we're also introduced to Hank, which is short for Henry.
Yeah.
Who's like, he was the first to really figure out the side effects that partially affected Frank's, and will then affect Bryce.
Right. Yeah. It's like Bryce. He picks up this razor blade, and it cuts to, like, he kind of like has, you know, you can tell like something's going on in his mind. He kind of looks shaken up for a second, and then we just cut to this scene of him killing Elizabeth in bed with the razor blade, and there's blood going everywhere. And then we find out that didn't really happen. That he imagined.
Yeah,
it.
I kind of like that scene because. You know how in a lot of horror movies, it's like this person wakes up, they start doing all this crazy stuff, and then it just like kicks back and they just wake up in bed? Like, for this movie, it really worked that it was like, no, this is just a fantasy that's going on in his head. It's obvious, it's clear, you know, they're not hiding it. They're not trying to like pull some magician bullshit on you.
Yeah, and it not being like, he didn't wake up in bed. This isn't a dream. This is something that's happening in his mind when he is awake.
Yes.
And then I think the next thing we see is Victor finding Bryce, like, walking around the facility, or I think it seems like they're kind of in a house that they're all kind of sharing, maybe.
Yeah, I think he breaks into Frank's apartment.
Okay. And he's like, he's very distraught, and he's like, the headaches are getting worse. And
the nightmares are getting worse.
Yeah, I'm getting these really dark thoughts. I don't know where they're coming from. This is all really new. And then he pulls out a gun.
Tries to gaslight him, and he's like, "Hey, we just need to do some more studies, bud. That's all."
Yeah, it'll be okay. Just trust the process. This is experimental. There's going to be some side effects, but we'll figure it all out. And then Bryce pulls a gun on Victor.
Uh-oh. Yep, he just wants it to stop.
Yeah, the violent dreams are too much. He wants Victor to just take him off of everything. And Victor's like, I can't do that. Like, it's too late. Like, you're
right.
in it.
Okay, so this is where they mention it, because Bryce is like, I want to go back to the way I was before. Mm-hmm. And that's when Victor says, within 3 months, you would have been fully incapacitated. There's nothing you would have done. And
right.
Even if you survived that long.
Okay, yeah. He, like, describes some of what he was dreaming, and then I think it just cuts to, like, later, and Victor is talking to Jessica, who we saw at the beginning. She's really upset because it seems like she's either an investor or she's like the go-between from some investors who have put a lot of money into Victor's experiments.
Yeah, I think she's his handler basically for the pharmaceutical companies that Victor's working for. Pharmaceutical / military industrial complex.
Right, yeah. And so she's obviously upset because the test subject, the one and only test subject, Bryce, has escaped. He's gone missing. Oh no, where did he go, I wonder? Yeah, and so the trustees are like, the research has stopped. We're not happy about that. You need to move forward.
Victor's like, no, we're super close. Like, we're just like right there.
Yeah, we'll get there. And then we have him talking to
Hank. Yeah,
and he's like, I've got a new idea. We're going to continue the research. And Hank's
we found
like,
a replacement body.
Yeah, Hank's like, but we've made so much progress with Bryce. How are we going to start from scratch and get done quickly? And he's like, well, he pulls out that this is Bryce. Like, Bryce is dead. He's got Bryce's body, and they are going to put it back together. And...
Yeah, well, they actually are hiding it right now.
Oh, yeah, they don't show that it's Bryce because it's just corpse parts at the moment. Right. But yeah, they build the body out of the parts. They put it in like this sort of chemical bath, this big like tank of greenish murky water.
Right. Now the reason why they deconstruct him, aside from hiding the fact that it's Bryce, is basically they want to realign his systems to better work with the nanites. So they're doing some surgery on him while they're putting the nanites into his system.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And of course, he's all like bandaged up when he's in the tank, so we can't see who it is.
Right, and I love how narrator Franks or Victor says, this is the point in the story in which it takes a dark and irreversible turn. This is the point? Not back in South Africa? That wasn't when it took a dark and irreversible turn?
Yeah, this is like dark and irreversible from the jump.
Right.
As he's saying that, we get like the creation in the tank like kind of springs up out of the bath and like attacks Henry, and then it immediately cuts back to the present. So we're kind of left hanging as to what was going on, or what happens there. And Walton's like, this is all made up. There's no way any of this is true.
Yeah, we're going to cut your dosage to your, it wasn't Thorazine, what was it called? Leprosine or something like that. Anyway, we're going to cut your drugs a little bit so you're a little bit more lucid during our next conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of like the end of their interview for the day. And Walton goes outside in the hallway and bumps into 2 police officers who want to talk to him and see how things are progressing.
We've got, what is it, Detective Ferrati and Detective Nimby.
Okay. Yeah, I did not write their names down at all.
I don't think they ever actually say their names.
Okay.
There are points. Yeah, this is strictly IMDb. But there are points when the audio is just so bad that you will not be able to understand shit they say.
Yeah. The 2 cops, they're checking in. They want to, or in fact, I think they're just like, we want to talk, and then we cut back to another flashback before we get any conversation with Walton and the cops. We've got another woman at a bar. She leaves. She goes and unlocks her car, gets in, and then is like, "Oh, my purse." So she goes back inside, gets her purse without locking the car door, goes back, gets in the car, and, sure enough...
She adjusts the mirror, and what's in that mirror?
Yep, this hideously deformed monster who then punches straight through the car seat and pushes her heart out of the front of her body, like just like cartoonishly murders her.
Yeah, we'll find out her name's Rebecca. She's actually important, not just a random victim.
Yeah. So, and like the timeline's a little weird here, but I think this is kind of happening a little bit closer to the interview than to the flashbacks. It's kind of in the middle there.
But definitely before the intro to the movie.
Right, yes. Then do we go back to the police? Yeah, so now they're on the roof.
Walton, they're smoking on the roof.
Mm-hmm. They're like, there's still 2 associates of Victor that have gone missing.
We'll find out it's Hanks and Elizabeth.
Yeah. And they're like, we know he's going to try to plead insanity, but, we want to give him the death penalty, and that's not going to fly. Walton's like, but I thought doesn't he just have a public defender right now? He's not even trying to, contest anything. And they're like, yeah.
He's going to go for a real lawyer if he has.
Yeah, he'll lawyer up at the last minute, go, insanity plea and try to get out. So to prevent that, we need you to get a confession from him. That will seal the deal.
So this chaps my ass a little bit. Because at this point, Walton is like, oh, yeah, well, whatever he tells me is inadmissible in court. Dude, you're the court-appointed psychologist. Like, that is the point of you. You are there for evidence.
Yeah. Like, there is, client-patient or patient-doctor confidentiality stuff, but no, not in this case. This is a prime example of when that, gets put on hold.
Right.
But yeah, so he's like, I don't know if I could do it, but I could try to get some info and maybe it could be useful to you, but I can't testify, which yes, you can. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point of you. That's why you're here.
Yeah. And I think from there we go back to Walton talking to Victor again. And he's like, so tell me about Elizabeth. What was your relationship with her? And Victor's like, I loved her
as much as I could.
Yeah. And we instantly go to a flashback of Victor and Elizabeth having kinky sex.
Right. I like how he just degrades her immediately. He's like, she was a simple girl from the Midwest.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like, I think she has him like tie her, or she takes off his belt and then has
and
him.
He ties her up with his belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she's like, hit me. I want some stank on it. It's like, I mean... If they're into it, sure.
Yeah.
Consenting adults.
Yeah, like we said, there is going to be some dicey stuff later, but this, sure, if you're both into it, go for it. That's great.
Yeah. I don't know about the hitting part, but maybe, sure, why not? Spanking's whatever. Anyway. But yeah, Walton is, so you guys were dating.
Yeah. And then he's like, what about Hank Clerval? And, Victor's like, yeah, he was a skilled surgeon. He was really helpful in my research.
Yeah, he's a little bit crude, but he was a great surgeon.
Yeah. And then Walton's like, so what about Rebecca Clark? She accused you of assault. And Victor's like...
Well, those claims are baseless, is what Frank says.
Yeah, it's definitely like everything's been blown out of proportion. It's very male response to Me Too accusation kind of stuff here.
Right. But I do like how Walton is like... Or he calls him Mr. Walton. And he's done that a couple times, and Dr. Walton's like, it's Dr. Walton. And
yeah, because I think at the beginning, there's something where, like, that happens in reverse, where Victor's like, it's Dr. Franks, and then, now it's, he's kind of getting him back there.
Right. But at this point, Walton is like, no, we're kind of establishing a timeline, a history of a history of violence.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we get another flashback, and we get the interview with Rebecca, which is like, there's a lot of sexual tension in this scene.
Right. I'll do anything, doctor. By the way, Victor's audio, once again, sucks. It sounds like they didn't even mic him up this time.
Yeah, like they've got one mic that they're sharing or something.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I'm single and I'll do anything it takes.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, because he says something like, this job is going to require so much of your time that it's not going to work if you've got, a husband or a boyfriend. And she's like, I don't, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So she got the message that he wasn't asking about her time. once they kind of have their sort of flirty interview, we just cut to all of our doctors now, Victor, Elizabeth, Hank, and Rebecca, all working with Bryce, collectively taking care of him and helping with the process. And it's just a really quick scene, and then I think we just cut to them, like, after their work day, they're all hanging out at a bar together, and Rebecca is flirting with Victor pretty hard, and Elizabeth, like, it looks like Elizabeth
is jealous.
Yeah, it looks like she's jealous and kind of pissed about it. And she, like, orders some drinks and then, like, puts drugs in one of them and then goes and gives it to Rebecca. And it's like, oh, she's going to try to, like, kill her or get her out of the picture in some way. But instead, we cut to a little later. They're back at the apartment, and Victor and Elizabeth sort of, like...
Well, Elizabeth is macking on Rebecca. Mm-hmm. She's, like, all up on her.
Yeah, like, she's... And Rebecca's not unconscious, but you can tell she's kind of, like, dazed. She's drugged, but not out.
Right.
And, so at first, it's Elizabeth. Elizabeth and Rebecca are, like, making out. They're rolling around. Victor's kind of watching it.
Oh, by the way, we didn't mention that the person giving her the drugs was her friend. Like, is she even credited?
Yeah, you just see her, like...
Or is it Candy? Is Candy her name?
Maybe?
Sure, we'll go Candy. Because she definitely does a lot of nose candy.
Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, Victor's like watching them kind of fooling around. He shoots something up, I assume heroin. It's not really shown, but he like injects something while they're fooling around. And then
Well, yeah, I mean, he's definitely cooking it with a spoon.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So if it ain't heroin, it's damn close.
And then we get the first instance of something that will kind of become like a motif throughout the movie, but I don't really understand what its purpose is, which is that like there are like camera snapshots of what's going on. So
it's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
Yeah, it just kind of like freeze frames on what's happening and then like kind of continues. It would make sense if somebody was taking those photos, if we had somebody spying on them or whatever, but like no, it's just like a way to it happens in sex and murder scenes for the rest of the movie. I don't really know why. I guess it's just a strange stylistic choice they decided to go with.
I do feel that this was their kind of like, they probably just saw the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and were like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. And then we cut back to the present, and Walton is like, I don't like that. That was not a good story, drugging Rebecca and everything. And Victor's like, oh, you're so judgmental. And he's like, yeah,
right.
That's my job. I am here to judge you.
Right. He's like, no, you're here to judge my mental capacity, not my morality. It's like, sometimes they're kind of a little bit closer than you want to believe.
Yeah. And, Victor says, rough sex, whatever, like, I'm not a murderer. Like, that's not something that I do. Like, then we cut back to some past moment where Victor is at the same bar, but he's talking to Jessica this time. She's again checking up on the investment and worried about his progress. She's like, I know you got a drug habit and that's impacting your work, and I'm concerned about that.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah. Victor tells Walton back in the present, this is where we kind of get the explanation for what's going on, or why Victor had to test on himself, which is that when he would inject himself with the nanotech, it would upload his thoughts into like a central computer database, and then when they would inject Bryce, he was downloading Victor's dark thoughts into his brain.
Which that sounds sketchy, right? That sounds like that's kind of planned, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't entirely make sense. I think what the intent here is, like, with a lot of Frankenstein stories, we have, the debate of, is Victor the monster or is the creation the monster? And I think here, this is a way for it to kind of be both, and it'd be like, yes, Victor is the monster, and he turned the creation into a monster directly through his own monstrousness. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yeah, so all of Bryce's dark thoughts, all of his weird visions and everything, they were actually mine. Flashback to the night when Bryce pulled the gun on Victor. So, which, again, talking about like Asylum trying, the way that this movie is structured with the flashbacks and flash forwards, it keeps things pretty tense and actually stays pretty well organized. Like, you're never like, wait, what the... Like, there are a few moments where you're like, I'm not sure where exactly this fits in the timeline, but it's not necessary to know exactly. But, in stuff like this where it's like, we had Bryce pull the gun, and then we cut away, and you kind of forget about that moment. And then when you come back to it, you're like, oh, shit, yeah, what did happen after that? And it kind of, like, keeps you moving along at a pretty brisk pace.
Right. It's like, you want to know? Well, I'll tell you. This is what happened.
Yeah. Victor, is like, my research is bigger than you. And he manages to get the gun away from Bryce and shoots him.
Right. Which, you kind of saw that coming, right, Bryce? I mean,
right.
He's not exactly all theirs, and he's kind of a dick, so...
So, we did kind of give away, or I did, that Bryce is the creature, but, like, this whole thing where, like, Bryce has gone missing, now we find out he didn't go missing, and Victor knew exactly where he was, because Victor killed him, which leads to the next sort of flashback scene, which is Victor talking to Hank, and he's like, I've got a way to continue our research. I've got Bryce's body. And,
tell you what, I'll give you half. I'll give you $100,000. That's all that's left in the account, I'm sure. Before they try to sue us, you'll get that, and then then we'll put Bryce back together again. We'll revive him. Everything will be great, like we originally planned, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course Hank/Henry is like, well, what about Liz and Rebecca? Like they also worked for this, right? And he's like, they're all right. But you're the guy that'll make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely stoking Hank's ego a little bit here, but also wisely, he's trying to keep the people, in the know as small as possible.
Right. Which he purveys it, or he expresses that it's because he loves Elizabeth versus didn't want to share the fucking money with Elizabeth.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Hank agrees, I think it's, the money and the ego stroking work, and he's like, okay, well, I'll do it, but it's just this one, like, we're going to do this, we'll show it to the scientific community, and then I'm out, like, I'm not. So then they're going to do the surgery, and for whatever reason, they're like, this time, we got to inject the nanobots right into the face. It can't be...
Right in the face. Okay, let's talk about that, because I feel like that's Frank's being like, fuck this guy. I don't want anyone to recognize him. And we want a reason for him to be fucked up. Right?
Yeah.
But also, all right, so let's talk about the gel torso. Can we talk about the gel torso?
Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. I love this scene, but you can tell the small mistakes, right? They have a gel torso underneath the actor's actual head. They start cutting into it. You can see the cut lines, but literally beside the cut line is where the blood's coming out of the tube for the scalp. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking funny. That's so good. Because it should be in the cut.
Yeah.
Versus it being literally to the side of it. I'm
like,
that's amazing.
For all of us saying Asylum trying hard, they're still Asylum.
Yeah, they're still Asylum. They're going to do Asylum. Like, the audio before and this, they're still Asylum.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, well, we'll talk about later, but I feel like Asylum's kind of me and my friends getting together and making movies.
Yeah. So while they're finishing that, Elizabeth, like, knocks on the door and wants to come in, and Victor's like, no, go away. This is important work. We can't have you interrupting us at this time. And she's part of the team, so she's, kind of heartbroken about that she's not...
She's like, you're operating without me?
Yeah, I'm not important enough to do whatever this procedure is.
What a bastard.
Yeah. Bryce kind of, like, revives temporarily, but then just kind of, like, everything stops, and Victor's like, okay, I guess... Or, no, Henry's like, I guess we failed. That wasn't enough.
It sucks to suck. We're done.
Yeah. And Victor's like, we got to keep trying, and
Oh, also, if you have an issue with tinnitus, it's not your tinnitus that's going on. There's just a ear-piercing fucking screech from him being flatlined, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, like, it just cuts to, like, later that night, Victor hears monitors beeping outside of his room, and goes rushing out. He says it's alive, because we got to have him say it's alive. Mm-hmm. And he, like, records a little, like, doctors are always, like, especially, like, morgue technicians, but, like, they have to record their sort of, like, statements about progress and everything. He starts to do that, and then we just cut to him speeding across town to go talk to Hank and tell him what happened.
Yeah, he's got to tell Henry/Hank how it went down. That we're back in the money, baby.
Yeah.
Well, he knocks on the door. Hank answers, but that's not the only voice he hears.
Yep, Elizabeth is in there. So Henry and
Betrayal.
Elizabeth, and which again, like that seems to be an ongoing thing in a lot of adaptations. Is like, did Henry and Elizabeth have a little thing going on the side?
Everyone's like, that would have been the best outcome for both characters.
Yeah. And then it just cuts to, back into the present, and Victor tells Walton, that was the last time I saw Hank alive.
Live,
Walton writes something down right after he says that, and Victor's like, what'd you just write down? And he's like, nothing. He's like, no,
Right.
you just wrote something when I said that. It's like, that's...
It was kind of a confession. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, let's go back to him shooting Bryce. Like, that's nail number one in the coffin, right?
Yeah, he told him that,
like,
so...
You're done here, baby. We can go home.
Yeah, the rest of the deaths, I mean, if we can get confessions too, great, but, one's enough.
Right.
And so then Victor says, after I left Henry's, I went back to the lab. No, it's Henry goes to the lab. So, there's a flashback of Henry going to the lab.
He's like, hey, come check it out anyway. Meet me at the frickin' lab.
Yeah, but Victor's not there. And then that's when the scene we saw earlier of the creature grabbing Henry, that's when that happens. He grabs him and pulls him into the tank and drowns him.
Right. Rough.
Yeah. And then he the creature starts to remove his bandages, and we see that his face, as you said, is all fucked up. It's all decayed. It's skeletal. It may be the closest to the Bernie Wrightson drawings that I've seen in a film adaptation. I mean, it's not, it's Asylum, so it doesn't look incredible, but it's going for that kind of appearance at least.
What is the character from House? Is his name Eddie from House?
Yeah. I think so.
Very much like that character.
Yeah, absolutely.
The skeletal guy.
And so then Victor does arrive back at the lab and finds that the creature has escaped and that Hank is dead.
Oh no. I'm sure he didn't want that to happen.
Right, yeah. Victor's like, yeah, so I didn't kill him, but I did dissolve his body with acid because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Number 2, destroying evidence. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then back in the present, Victor's like, I wish you all wouldn't give me all the drugs you're giving me. It takes away feeling. Describing the numbness of being over-medicated, he says, science can rob you of humanity, which...
Yeah, well, the drugs rob you of your senses, but the drugs rob you of your humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, science made the drugs that are robbing him of this, but, in reality, his mindless desire to pursue science is what's robbed him of his humanity. So, I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
And then we go back to Victor alone in the lab. He loads a gun.
Yeah, to defend himself, of course, because we know guns work against creatures.
Right, yeah.
So effectively.
And the way the scene's played, I mean, of course, we know that we're in the present, or, we've jumped around in the timeline, so we know, but, it kind of looks like Victor is contemplating, I could just kill myself and get out of this whole problem, or I could use it to try to stop the creature. And
we probably didn't mention there's a little bit of suicidal ideation going on a couple times.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's brief, and it's never acted on in any kind of really traumatic way or anything, but there's some low level stuff going on there for sure. But Victor ends up falling asleep with the gun and then wakes up a little later being attacked by the creature.
Right, by the creature.
We get a creature who's already able to talk for the most part, and he yells, "Fix me, what am I?"
You're just an experiment. That's a great way to calm someone down, calling him just an experiment, right?
Yeah, but he does say, "You are a masterpiece, a testament to my genius."
My genius, not the genius of Hank or Elizabeth. But tell you what, we will help you,
Yeah.
Or I'll help you, not we'll. There is no wheel with Victor.
Yeah. But the creature ends up just kind of storming out in rage at the information Victor's given him. So Victor just goes home, and there he...
Well, what should he find there?
Yeah, he finds Elizabeth, who is dressed in lingerie and wanting to apologize for sleeping with Hank.
I liked Hank, but I love you, Victor. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe, sure, why not, but...
Yeah, and we get a brief moment of Victor being slightly selfless.
I don't know about that. He says it, but I don't believe it.
Yeah. He says basically that like he knew that Elizabeth would be in danger of the creature because it already killed Henry. So he needed to get Elizabeth out of the picture. So to do that, he's cruel and insulting to her so that she will leave.
Yeah, he just tells her you weren't good for anything but a lay, and he said a lot more cruder words than that. But then he just calls her a whore.
Yeah. So she leaves, and obviously heartbroken. And then we get her again talking to that same friend from earlier, that we are calling Candy.
Right.
And she's
who's like, hey, here's some pills to calm you down and make you happy.
Yeah.
By the way, is it me or is there a lot of sexual tension between those two?
Yeah, I got that vibe for sure. I mean, we know Elizabeth is bisexual since she already was fooling around with Rebecca earlier, right. So makes sense.
And it feels like her friend's like, hey, I know you're bi. Why not me? Pick me.
Yeah, we'll do some drugs and party. Right. And she says something like, why don't you go upstairs? You take a bath. You can calm down.
Right. Have some wine with your happy pills, which that's a great idea.
Right.
And then take a bath.
Yeah.
While I sit here and do some nose candy. Chop, chop, chop.
So Elizabeth goes upstairs. She kind of seems to be having a little bit of a panic attack or something as she's getting the tub ready. She eventually gets in while downstairs.
Okay. I hate to interrupt, but did it make you as nervous as it made me that Candy has so many fucking tea lights? Like tea candles around her room for no reason.
Yeah, it seems like we were getting set up for a fire.
Okay.
Some fire bad action here.
Maybe.
But then to compound things, Candy also is like, hey, Elizabeth, do you mind if I put on some music? And Elizabeth's not paying attention, so she cranks up music, which is, a bunch of it's new metal. It's loud, and it's like, okay, now she's going to be completely unable to hear anything going on around her. We're definitely being set up for Candy to, not make it out of this scene alive.
Right. Which she probably does not, because the creature / Bryce busts in and just bodies her through her glass table.
Mm-hmm. And it look like you see a big triangle of glass impaling, sticking out of her stomach or chest or something. So yeah, it does not seem like she's gonna make it. And then we just cut to upstairs where the creature, finds Elizabeth in the bath, attacks her, rips out her heart. So he's definitely got a fondness for doing that.
Right, he's got a fondness for heart.
While that's going on, we get more of those weird camera snapshot things, and then we just see him carrying the body out in that traditional creature carrying a unconscious lady just across his arms.
Well, he brings Elizabeth back, and Victor comes out of his room, and he gives the most amazing Anakin Skywalker. No.
I wrote that down too. It's so it was so bad that I rewound it and listened to it again.
I know.
It sounds like it was ADR'd, and they didn't even mix it in the way they should have. So it sounds. His performance is bad, and also the way that it is layered into the actual film is bad, so it really feels out of place.
Yeah, I know, it's so amazing. I want to throw that up on TikTok and see if they can differentiate the where the no came from.
Yeah. No! The creature lays down Elizabeth, and she's wrapped in a shower curtain. It kind of reminded me of Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
But it also, the way the shower curtains kind of got, fringe to it, it looked like they were maybe implying, it was supposed to look a little like a wedding dress. The way she was kind of covered, she's obviously our bride character here.
I hope we're not giving the Asylum too much credit here.
Yeah, I don't know if it might be
Could go either way.
Victor says something about, so I wanted to revive her, not as a bride for the creature, but for myself.
For me.
Yeah, I wanted her back.
Okay, we didn't know that the creature necessarily wanted a bride. It made sense, but sure, why not? And that's when Walton says something that's fucking genius. He's like, so you set up the creature to kill again. Mm-hmm. You're already sending him out to kill things. So that's fucking nail number 3.
Right. And Victor doesn't deny it. Yeah, he's like,
yeah.
I had to. It made perfect sense. It's what had to be done. So the first body the creature finds is he kills a junkie, and Victor's like, no, this is no good. She's all contaminated. She's full of drugs. We don't want to mix that in with our, healthy Elizabeth body.
I argue that because Elizabeth's friend was Candy.
Right, yeah. I'm sure Elizabeth had, I mean, we know she took some pills and went into the bath, so she has some drugs in her system.
Right.
And then, so we cut back to the creature.
This is that search for the perfect woman bullshit again.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think this has happened before, but we didn't mention it, but like the creature, when he moves around, like they mix in some audio of like a tiger breathing.
Yeah, he snarls.
It's like that, that rumbly kind of breath that you hear from big cats. So, I don't know what Victor did to him to make him make that sound. I think it's just, it sounds cool. Let's make it kind of creepy.
Yep.
But
it fits the vibe.
Yeah, so we see the creature leaving, to go find another woman, and then immediately cut to a woman talking to a little girl. I thought it was her mom at first, but I think it's actually her babysitter. Right.
Yes.
Usually when you do babysitters in movies, it's always like a teen, but this is a grown woman, so that's what kind of threw me off. The girl is talking to somebody upstairs, and the babysitter's like, who are you talking to? And she's like, my new friend in the closet.
And that's when you're like, oh, she's going to open the closet and get got.
But yeah, instead the babysitter's like, all right, that's fine. You can talk to your friend. I'm going to go downstairs. So she goes to watch TV, and then that's where the creature appears and attacks her.
Right, but he doesn't get her. We get a little, almost a Scooby-Doo scene where she's running around and running away from him.
Yeah, if she like hits him with a lamp, and then she like yells up to the little girl and is like, call 911.
Right. I love how the fucking little girl, by the way, the babysitter's name's Susie, I believe, and the little girl's named Wendy.
Okay.
But Wendy is such an obnoxious little shit. She's like, I don't want to call 911. It's like, she's screaming for fucking dear life. Call 911, girl.
Yeah, and the babysitter's like, do it, bitch, or I'm gonna die.
Right.
Which, yeah, that was pretty and then she's like, well, can my friend call 911?
And who's her friend? Yeah, that's right. It's the creature.
Yeah. We hear a scream and cut to the creature just dropping the babysitter on the table in front of Victor. So
yeah, Victor's like, she'll do.
Yeah, that'll work. So he begins surgery, which in this case is he's literally just going to put Elizabeth's head on this woman's body.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so while he's like doing the surgery, he's like crying because he's cutting into Elizabeth, who he loves to some degree. So he's crying and like blood is splattering on his face as he's cutting. I thought it was pretty funny. So he finally gets them together, and then we get him lowering the bride into that same revival tank.
Absolutely. And he's like, well, it turns out Bryce was an anomaly and we couldn't bring Elizabeth back.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And then Walton's like, so, we've been working on this case for a while, and that your lab doesn't even exist, and we found no evidence that any of this happened.
Yeah, and Susie's body was found in a dumpster downtown.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't believe any of this story. Victor says, it's all true. The only reason I turned myself in was for your protection. Like, I wanted to be under lock and key to save myself from the creature.
Right, which, like, that's just an admission of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, boom, we're done. Send him on.
Yeah, and, Walton's like, so you're putting all of us at risk now if your story's true. Right. And he's like, I mean, it's not my fault. Like, I didn't make any mistakes. The creature turned out bad. It's not my, that wasn't my doing.
That's not my fault.
Yeah. He says something like, when it does find me, and it will.
Run, Walton.
Yeah, run. Then we get Walton talking to the cops again, and he's like, I haven't really gotten a confession, which, yes, he has. He's gotten Victor confessed to all kinds of shit.
Yeah. But maybe if I could interview the little girl, Wendy, maybe I can, finally put this case to rest. Not that I could have done it multiple times before.
Yeah. And so the police let him talk to her, and he's like, so tell me about your friend. And she gives him the information that the friend is 7 feet tall. That's unusual. So, like, Walton talks to the cops, and they're like, yeah, kids, they're not good witnesses. Like, that's not useful to us at all. Right. Walton's like, yeah, but, we know Victor's not that tall. We know Hank wasn't that tall, but we don't know about Bryce. We should get some more info about that. That might bring everything into clarity.
Okay, it's time for a rant now from Eric. The cops say, we'll let you know if we ever find his body. Guys, he drove a motorcycle. He has a fucking license.
Yeah.
It's on file. You can literally just go down and get it. You're cops.
Right, yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's obvious. Like, they should have thought of that for sure.
Right. Sorry about that. I don't know if that's just where my mind goes. It's like, you guys have access to this shit. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. One of the cops gets a phone call, and he's like, oh, we just got word that Rebecca's body, or no, not her body, her car. Her car was found, and the body was not in the car. They decide, let's all go talk to Victor. We'll bring the police in. We're all going to sit down with him. Maybe we can get a confession out of him now that we have this additional information. They tell Victor about that, and he's like, yeah, Rebecca's probably dead. Jessica's probably dead too. You'll eventually end up finding her as well. And he, again, kind of emphasizes this whole thing with like, Bryce received all of my nightmares and my dark visions through nanotech. And so it's not that he was murdering people to protect me or anything. He's specifically murdering people because
I wanted to.
Yeah. So it's not like instruction. It's like, direct like replication of Victor's dark thoughts.
Which, once again, bag this guy. What are we doing here?
Right.
But no, then he's like, okay, I tell you what, I'll sign a confession if you take me to the lab, and we'll go through the lab, we'll point out the bodies, everything. Just take me to my lab.
Yeah, and the cops are like, no, why would we do that? There's no incentive for us to do that. And Victor's like, well, if you don't, I am going to lawyer up. I am going to plead insanity. So if you want me to confess, if you want to, an open and shut case, you'll do what I say.
But they literally have an open and shut case. They
Right.
don't have to do anything else.
Yeah, they've already got everything they need. So then we have the two cops, Walton and Emily, who is now back, and they are all debating how they should proceed. Everyone's like, there's a lot of risks that are involved in this, and at first the cops are like, well, there's no risk to you all, you're not going, and Walton and Emily are both like, yeah, we're definitely going, like, we need to be there, which is weird because Emily, like,
Yeah, she fucking gave the case to Walton, and she's like, this is my case. It's not your case. You quit. Mm-hmm. You're done.
Yeah.
You should not be in this movie anymore, man.
Right. They end up deciding to all go.
And they're going to even bring his court-appointed attorney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who's named Grabowski, I guess?
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's just in this last little bit. So, so when they do end up getting to the lab, Victor's kind of giving them a tour around, and then we see there is Jessica. She's still there, split in half, hanging from the
She's
slab.
still warm, even.
Yeah. Obviously some bad stuff's going on here. They find the bride still floating in the tank, not revived.
The cops then hear a noise, and like fucking morons, they go investigate it.
Mm-hmm. While that's going on, Victor attacks Emily and starts holding her hostage. And the noise that the cops go to investigate is the creature who attacks them.
Yep, and kills them both.
Yeah, and we get
pretty.
Yeah, this is a brutal kill scene. We get a lot more of those like photo snapshots again. I think, and then the creature rips off the lawyer's arm.
His arm.
Like it was like cartoon. Like I thought he was gonna start beating him with it. Like
right.
Victor starts talking to the creature. Still using Emily as a shield. And is like,
we have so much more work to do.
Yeah. Calm down. We can figure all this out. And then Walton goes over to the revival tank and sees like car jumper cables connected to it. So he goes and attaches them to the creature instead.
Yeah, well, the creature just gives the fuck up and starts attacking Victor. And Emily somehow gets out of there. I don't know.
Yeah. So Walton manages to electrocute the creature and Yeah. The energy's passing through them both, so Victor collapses to the ground.
Yeah, he has the brief flashback of, if we use too much power, it'll blow the system. So Walton's like, all right, I'll blow this fucking system. Let's do it.
Yeah. We almost see like some more like dark vision kind of stuff, and it seems like maybe those nanobots have passed back to Victor from the creature in the process. Then we go back to the hospital where Walton is recording his testimony of everything that happened there. It sounds like basically the police are going to cover all this up, but at least he has firsthand knowledge.
Yeah, well, he literally says the police won't share any information with me. Sir, what information do you need? You have literally everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like it was like they're debating how they're going to move forward, and like he thinks they're going to not tell all of this to the public, but he's like, I don't know how that case will go, but I at least have firsthand knowledge that the evil that these two men brought into the world is truly dead. So whatever the cops do, at least we know we're safe.
Hey, Anthony, why are we cutting back to the lab?
Yep, we go over to the revival tank where the bride awakes.
Oh no! Then we get that new metal song that they paid for called, I believe it's called "Sweet Intoxication," parentheses voodoo mix in parentheses.
Yep, and so that's how we end with the
abrupt ending.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, I will say I appreciate that if you kept watching it, like, because I was like, I'm certain there's going to be another scene at the end of this. This is the perfect time to start that. You know, I think Iron Man had come out by now. Marvel was in the starting stages of all that, but they do have a little note that says no persons were harmed in the making of this film. No monsters were harmed during the making of this production. Also, go back to the video store and rent more Asylum films. Why are you still reading this?
Yeah. Because I had the same thing, because like the credits were really long, so I was like, oh, there's probably is something here at the end, and then no, it was just long credits, and but there were those nice little jokes if you stuck around, so that was good.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this movie a little bit more. So, I mean, obviously there were a lot of errors, right? Mm-hmm. But it had some good bones.
Yeah. It's not perfect. It's a schlocky kind of like trash movie from the mid 2000s, but like, yeah, it's fun. It has, like we said, it modernizes the Frankenstein story in some interesting ways that are fun, and it tells a familiar story but in a unique way. So yeah, I thought it's definitely worth a watch. It was better than I expected when I started seeing Asylum stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, it's like I don't expect much from this movie. Okay, it's impressed me.
Yeah, and like even the creature makeup wasn't the best, but it was decent. The lab looked good. Like they managed to make sets that were probably done on shoestring budgets, but they looked pretty good.
Yeah, it's amazing how like well they've done in parts and how like just silly mistakes happen in others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it definitely seems like at least the person who wrote it knows and cares about Frankenstein and put some good stuff in there. So yeah, we always appreciate that.
Maybe a lot of the mistakes were just we didn't have enough budget to go back and do take number 2. That's a possibility as well.
Yeah, like that definitely felt like they probably had to ADR that in, and then they just weren't able to get it mixed the way they wanted, and they just sent it out. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of issues with sound mixing throughout the movie, so probably they didn't have the best person on the job for that, unfortunately.
No. Or maybe they just didn't have enough money to do it over again.
Yeah.
So, who knows? But it's the Asylum. Now they've found their niche, just making garbage movies.
Right. But yeah, it's nice to see them like back when they were like making horror. Like this feels like they were hungry. They were like doing this for the love and not for like the profit.
Yeah, which not bad.
Yeah,
but...
which there's nothing wrong with them making. There's a lot of filmmakers who just make movies for money and still make interesting stuff. And
Roger Corman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And some of Herschel Gordon Lewis is pretty famous for that too. And so, a lot of that stuff can be fun. And some of the later Asylum stuff is entertaining. It's not good, but it's entertaining. This manages to be entertaining and also good, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Anthony. So we've done some schlocky movies, but I mean, I don't think there's no telling what we're doing next week. Huh?
Yeah, so we just did these double features of kind of crass low budget indie stuff, and now we're kind of moving into a double feature of a little bit more highbrow low budget indie movies. So yeah, next week we're doing No Telling, which is directed by Larry Fessenden, and he also directed another Frankenstein movie, and if you know what that is, you might know what we're doing the week after.
I wonder. All right. Well, in that case, where can they find us, Anthony?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. You can find us over on YouTube. And you can also find us over at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we're still doing our 1 week free trials. We've actually had a lot of people taking advantage of that lately. We've had a couple people join up So we thank our newcomers. We got John Hazard, Susan Lester, and Anthony Perrone. So
thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us, and welcome. I've actually had some conversations with a couple of them. They've all been very nice, and we're glad to have you. And welcome more people if you want to check it out. You got that week to see if you like it, and sounds like some people are liking it enough to stick around. So maybe you'll do the same.
Tell your friends. Maybe they're interested as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.